miserable.
Welcome back to another miserable podcast. Jeremy's not here today. I mean, he's here. He's just not here in the seat. So,
he walked out, so now we can talk behind his back.
Right. He's eating cheese right now. So the topic for today is, what is the topic? I can't remember. Oh,
when is it okay to be selfish?
right. When is it okay to be selfish? And I think we should talk about that from a standpoint of kind of when you guys were talking about balance. There's so many things in our life that we have to balance. Personal lives, work, personal ambitions, all those different things. When is it okay to do things just for yourself and kind of putting everyone else second, putting everything else and everyone else on the back burner, taking care of yourself so that you can maybe even take care of others? When is it okay to do that? And when is it not?
Well, my initial thought, I guess when we were first talking about this, I was thinking like from the perspective of like doing something, right? Like, or like say, what we're doing now. I don't have as much responsibility as you guys do to other people. So, you guys have kids. So taking time to come here and do these things among, a million other things that we have going on and you guys have going on, in a way, you're being we're not being selfish because we are helping others, but we're taking time out of our immediate circles and the people in our immediate circles to come and do this. So that's kind of what I was thinking at first. But as you were just talking, I started thinking more on like, just like a personal and self-care kind of level. Because I think we tend to stretch ourselves thin, not just physically with the things we do, like working a lot or, doing what we need to do to provide for people, but also mentally, putting yourself in a lot of different places on top of your physical responsibilities, thinking and giving energy to a lot of other things that has a number of rippling effects, right? Could easily put you in a bad mood. One single conversation with something that you have going on could put you in a bad mood.
That's true.
And then that affects, XYZ, your relationship with your wife, with your kids, your family and whatever. So I think in those cases, I'm obviously this is like a broad strokes answer, but in those cases, for the most part, I think it's always the right time to be selfish. And that is a selfless form of selfishness, in my opinion. Making sure that you're taking, even if it's just a moment, to step away from something, to get your head on straight. Like walking away from a discussion that's tending its way towards an argument, or a comment that someone made, to allow yourself the moment to get in the right frame of mind.
Here's where I think the like a struggle is a little bit, especially, and you might be able to understand this too because you're married. So my wife and I, let's say we're getting to a place and we're about to argue. When I'm frustrated or I'm angry, a lot of times I don't want to talk in that moment because I want to walk away and think a little bit, and I don't want to just speak out of emotion. So a lot of times I just want to stop in that moment and just be like, I don't want to talk about this right now. She wants to talk about it. because that's how she deals with things.
Sure.
She's like, I'm thinking about it now and I want to talk about it now. Me, I have to get my thoughts together and then I want to talk about it. So in those moments, I can't always be selfish and be like, no, I'm not talking about it and walk away. So I kind of struggle with figuring out, okay, now's the time to walk away, or now's the time where I have to suck it up and talk it out because I can't just do everything that's best for me.
Sure.
So,
Well, I also think too, not to like, I definitely agree and understand where you're coming from. I guess on top of what I was saying in response to that is just like, even if it's a second to prevent from reaction. So like, if you're someone that kind of like, I feel like I'm a little bit more like Faith in this instance. Like I like to, I do like, well, maybe I guess a mixture. I do like to like give myself time to think through something or step away from a situation.
right,
But I also don't really like leaving things in some sort of like stasis or negative stasis and leaving that for a while because it sits on me like and it bothers me. Like I would prefer in most situations, if it's possible, to resolve an argument then and there. Even if it, ends up being agree to disagree sort of situation. But just in what I'm getting at for you though is just like I think even taking a second where you don't respond right away. If you're having a conversation just like this, and she says something that intentional, not just her, but if somebody says something
right.
intentionally or unintentionally that's hurtful or that's a dig in some way, it's easy, and this is probably why you're this way. It's easy to react, say something in an emotional response, but to like, you know, like actually can't say
Yeah,
on camera, actually physically like pause for a moment, even if it's weird, seems weird in the moment, like take a breath,
right.
think before you actually speak, instead of giving yourself a lot of time, like a micro version of what you're taking. Because sometimes you can't walk away. You're right.
Right.
Sometimes you have to just be in it.
Yeah, and I've had to learn even when I walk away, like you said, sometimes it's not even, it, I'll walk away and be like, all right, I'm not gonna talk about it anymore. I'm done with it. Let's just move forward. And she's like, no, I haven't resolved it, and I'm like, it's water under the bridge. It already happened. It's over. So in those moments, I'm like, I've learned, okay, can't be selfish. She needs that closure. And then sometimes she understands, all right, it's not a big deal. Let's just move on. And it's like the balance struggle that we kind of deal with in our relationship. Just using that as an example. But yeah, it's just something that, I think in any relationship, there's always going to be the way someone does something and another way someone else does something, even if you're just friends, boss and subordinate or student and teacher. There's always going to be some kind of, clash, and you just kind of have to figure out how to deal with that. But let's take it out of relationship and let's just talk about life in general, like being selfish. You're a photographer and you're busy. There's things jobs and gigs and clients that you have to work with, but you also have a family. When is it okay to tell your family, sorry, I can't be there for you, I'm working? And when is it okay to say, I can't take this gig, I can't work with this client because I have family stuff going on? And the same question for you. When is it okay to be like, yo, because you were talking about in the Balance podcast, yo, I gotta work, I gotta provide for my family. When is it okay to say, well, that's what I want to do, that's what I'm gonna do? And when is it okay to say, I can't do that right now because I got to be there for my kids or I need to be there for my wife, whatever it may be?
I think it definitely. Well, let me back up real quick to to the first part of the question when we were talking earlier. The initial question was, when is it okay to be selfish?
Right.
My definition of that, it's okay to be selfish whenever it starts to become a burden and or a burden on a relationship. So either a burden on you
Mm.
and or a burden on your relationship. So initially I thought it was just a general question. And that was my answer to that. It's
Okay.
okay to be selfish when it starts to become a burden on you personally. And then we started moving in a relationship perspective. When it starts becoming a burden on your relationship, on your marriage, on your friendship, whatever that is, then I think at some point, then it's okay to be selfish. Also, too, it also depends on how much each individuals are putting in to the relationship. So if you're the friend that's always reaching out, always doing the work, at what point is it okay for you to be like, all right, I'm done. I'm done reaching out.
Right. Right.
Or if you're the partner that's always, doing everything or whatever the case is, then at some point it's like, all right, you can't always give while the other person is just taking and taking and taking and taking. So it also depends on the input that's happening from each individual that I think will definitely dictate what what you need to do for yourself. And also another thing too, it depends on what that person needs. Right. So that's where the communication piece comes in.
Yeah.
Because everybody doesn't
Yeah.
need a bunch of attention
Or at all times.
right. So so that's where the communication will have to come into play to say, all right, here is what I need. And this can answer the second part of your question. That balance, like how do you figure out? It's a collective communication that needs to happen either within your friendship and or your marriage, where you're going to sit down and you're going to say, okay, here's what I have going on. All right. I'm doing this over here. I have this going on over here. I have to be a father, of course, definitely have to be a husband. These are the desires of my heart. You're doing this, you're doing that. All right. How can we collectively make this all work? All right. And it has to be a discussion where we sit down and say, okay, having dinner once a week as a family is important to us.
Yeah.
So if that happens, then I can understand everything else happening. Or spending time together on a Sunday afternoon is important. Or just as a husband and wife, we have to at least step out, just us only, and go have dinner. Or if we're friends, just we equally just reach out to each other to see how everybody's doing, just checking in on each other. So I think it definitely depends on the communication that's happening. A lot of times the selfishness and the battles and stuff like that kind of comes into play because of the lack of communication.
Right. Right.
Right. So because the lack of communication and everyone is not necessarily on the same page, I think it'll be silly of us to all think that, and a bit childish too, to think that everything that we want and all our desires is just gonna happen.
That makes a lot of sense, especially because when you say there has to be communication, that makes so much sense because without communication, there's no understanding.
Right.
There's no way I can understand why you're not there for me if
Right.
we're not communicating about
Right.
it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's like a big issue in any relationship, in any relationship dynamic. I feel like we don't communicate enough. It's gotten better. I keep going back to my wife, and I'll use that as an example. I love you, Faith. That let's say the situation where I don't want to talk about something, or let's even say the situation where, like you mentioned, we're here and we're recording, and there's other things I got to do, and there's other things I got to do. That was such an issue in the beginning.
Right.
Because, we're pretty newly married, still under a year. But once we started communicating and talking and planning and saying, okay, on this day, You have to work because she got a second job now. Okay, you're going to work late. We're probably not going to really be able to see each other. And, the next night I'm going to go out and record with the fellas. So we're probably not going to be able to see each other. You know what? Let's do something on Thursday.
Right.
That has made things so much better because it's like, okay, we're busy. We're not really seeing each other and spending time during the week. But we have, this day and this day that I know we're going to come together and be able to spend quality time with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that communication is where the difference is made between like what I believe to be actual selfishness and then just misunderstood selfishness.
Right.
Honesty, and sometimes it's not even on purpose. Most people like to communicate and like to be in that type of a situation. They like to be honest. They like to be honest. They prefer to be honest, but sometimes we just don't, not for any reason.
I honestly have a personal battle in my head for just communicating. I guess because I communicate so much that.
Can you give me an example?
I'm trying to think about an example that just wouldn't be personal. Like, I guess a more general.
Well, I think maybe you
example.
said this before, right? Maybe like I think we've all maybe. I know Jeremy has as well, and I think both of you guys have. When we do stuff like this, and then you go home, and y'all's wives want to be like, "What did you guys do?" And you're just like, "We did stuff. We filmed some podcasts."
That has to do. I think that's a gender difference, and I guess, and the reason why I'm figuring this out now is from just having a boy and a girl. I just think, and nothing. I'm not knocking anybody. I just think that my wife does that all the time, where it's kind of like, "Hey, this person told me this. Well, why did they tell you that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. You didn't ask them why they told you that?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, I don't care.
I can relate to that.
I could care less." So what did you say to them? I didn't say nothing. You didn't say anything? No, I don't care.
Yeah.
They gave me the information, and then I'm like, all right,
Moved on to
whatever.
the next thing.
I kept on going.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference between a gender difference, where for as men, it's like, all right, okay, whatever that means. And for a woman, she's just like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Because now she's like calculating. It's like, well, what this because of this and because of that and because of that. And it's like, I didn't really think that much into it.
Yeah.
I could honestly care less.
I got that intro information and
Right.
just went on with my life.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, so there is times like my wife likes to talk. She likes to talk to me. Right.
As she should.
As she should. But I'm not necessarily a talker. I have the few things that I would like to say. And once I say it, then like I'm done. I don't talk a lot. And I guess that's where we balance each other. Because she liked to communicate, sometimes over communicate. And then sometimes I just don't like communicating. It doesn't mean that I don't know how to communicate. It's just a personal fight that's in me where it's like, I know I need to do it, but the rebel is like, man, don't even worry about that. Like, why you even gotta say that?
Yeah.
So it's just, and that's something I was like trying to explain to her. It's not like, it's something like I'm fighting inside myself just because I know the right thing to do. I'm just tired of talking. I'm so serious. Like, I'm so tired of like talking.
Is that because of what you do for work? You think that has a big part of it?
Maybe. And that's the battle too. Like, I talk so much at work that by the time I get home, it's like,
Your jaw's tired.
no, I just.
Well, I think you're just naturally that. As long as I've known you, you've always been the type of person that you didn't do a whole lot of this,
Right.
Especially like if there's something happening in your personal life, unless you want to, you're like, I'm good. And that's just how you are.
That's like when you walked in here.
You internalize a lot of things, and I'm the same way. you internalize a lot of things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you like to deal with them on your own.
Right. And in my own timing.
Right. Women, a lot of women, not I want to say all, but most women, it seems like they want to help. There's something wrong with you, so I want to talk to you and I want to help you.
And that's true.
So
that's a problem.
Like there is something wrong.
So when is it, the question for that situation, when is it okay to say, no, I'm not letting you in? Because sometimes you need that. Sometimes, especially as a man, you need to deal with things on your own.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, I think it just comes back to the communication, right? And obviously, over time, understanding, which is something that you were alluding to earlier. As you spend more time with someone, you get to know more about that person and how they work. You have to, on both sides, there has to be an understanding and a give and take for those things. I mean, for everything, obviously. But in the ways in which we communicate, there has to be like, if you're someone who is contemplative and isn't necessarily the first to talk or to speak a lot, then, and you're in a relationship or you're in some sort of connection with someone who's the opposite, you do have to, like, obviously, like you're saying, try to work through whatever your personal inhibitions are to be that way, to try and meet that person in the middle. But there also has to be the understanding that, like, I could only, if I'm that way, I can only do so much before it's not meaningful anymore. You know what I mean? You could try and push past whatever it is that makes you the way that you are to try and give as much as you can of yourself to your wife.
But then am I being true to myself?
Right. And I think it's your responsibility to try and meet her somewhere, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But also her responsibility to be like, I don't want to ask too much of him because it's not who he is.
Right. That's very true. I think you definitely have to meet somewhere in the middle, both parties, for whatever it is. Friendship, marriage, whatever it is.
Business relationship, anything.
Whatever it has to, there has to be a meeting in the middle, a meeting where, but I think all of that still comes to communication, right? So at some point I would have to communicate what my interest and what my desires are. You have to do the same. I have to have a good understanding. And I think a point that we're actually missing too is respect. Because although you may have communicate and although a person may have understanding, they still could care less of
that's true.
Whatever that is. Yeah. So definitely respect is definitely a huge point in all of this. And definitely when you mix all of these things together, then, you know, things starts to become a lot more cohesive and a lot more functional in whatever state that may be in. So, you know, communication is huge. I think it's definitely the foundation of a lot of relationship for whatever kind it may be. Friendship, business partners, like however you want to look at it, there definitely has to be communication. And I think once you start taking it up is what I consider effective communication. Because sure, we can sit here and talk, but how do I effectively communicate to give you the information that you need so that you can be receptive of what it is that I'm saying? So, and then we have to respect each other, right? So regardless of how you feel, I have to respect the way how you feel, and you letting me know, you know, what you need and what you're feeling. I have to respect that and keep that into consideration. And then I think with all that information that you then have, I think it then actually removes selfishness, because if you understand that person, you understand that other person's desires, selfishness actually kind of gets canceled out. Because now you basically have everything that you need. The person understands you. The person is, they're fulfilled where they need fulfillment. There's communication.
Yeah.
You're going to go to work on this day. I'm working late on that day. We're definitely going to spend this time on this day. Now the communication happened. There's respect.
Right.
There's all these different things that's in. Now you never have to be selfish.
Or it never has to have the appearance of selfishness.
Well,
At all.
Well, I think what it is like you said, it doesn't have the appearance of selfishness, because when you say selfishness, people automatically think negative.
Right.
And selfishness is not always a negative thing. Selfishness allows you to be selfless, because you have to be able to be true to yourself.
Right.
You have to be able to take care of yourself. And
But if you communicate all of that,
right.
and now you're being fulfilled in every way that you need, you're not even thinking about yourself anymore.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So now it's not like, it's kind of like, and you're right. A lot of times we use the word selfishness in a negative way. And it's like, oh, you're just selfish. All you care about is yourself. But if all I'm doing is giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, at what point do I care about myself?
Sure.
Right.
Well, I think in the communication aspect of things, where it's the reason why it's key to have that communication and understanding, because without full communication, we're left to make assumptions of things. And then when we're left to assume, whether it's left to assume, like say, like in work, like you talked a while back about some people that thrive under the type of situation where they're given instructions, and some people thrive in a situation where they're a little bit, where things are a little bit more loose and they're allowed to just, succeed in the way that they know how, rather than following somebody else's example.
Right.
And this might not be for everybody. I guess people who have a little bit more insecurities and lack of self-confidence, when there's room for assumptions to be made, you are trying to go and act off of how you think you know someone to be or to feel, which is dangerous, right? Because if you're in a relationship with someone, or if it's at work or something like that, and you don't know all of the information, and then you assume, you could end up
In a bad position
for a few reasons. One, you can take it very personally, right? You can start like falling into your insecurities, and like, where am I doing this right? Am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Is what I'm doing, the way I'm doing it, going to negatively affect myself in some way, or the people involved?
Which goes back to what he said. There has to be effective communication on both sides.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, so without the communication, people are just left to assume things, which is terrible, because, I mean, even if you know somebody well, if you're into any sort of uncharted territory in any way, and you make an assumption of what somebody wants or how they would react, it's like you said, it could put you in a far worse situation than where you were, before you made the assumption.
Right.
So, I mean, communication is absolutely key.
Yeah.
I mean, even when it comes down to, like you were saying, like, this day I've got to do this, and this day you're working late. Understanding and planning, like you said that you guys have been doing, is important, because when you sit down together with whomever it is, and you're like, these are the things outside of our relationship, like just this part, these are the things that we're responsible to and for.
Right.
And these things are a part of life. These things have to be done.
Also, let me understand where you're coming from, so I can give you the leeway to be a little selfish sometimes.
Sure.
Because as human beings, we need to be selfish. And I think when you say something like people are like, whoa, I'm such a nice guy. I'm so selfless.
Right.
And it's like, that's not how life is. You have to be selfish sometimes. It's healthy to be selfish.
Well, you just have to take time for yourself.
Exactly.
You have to, whatever it is. Like,
or just being true to yourself, like he said.
Right. I used to love, like, whenever I'd be in some sort of situation where I was upset in some way, sad, angry, whatever. I used to love going for a drive late at night. No, what I used to do actually was go in a direction that I haven't been, keep driving, and then at some point decide I'm going to go back. And then I would not pay attention to the way I got there to that destination. And I would try without using a GPS or directions. I would just try to find my way back. Sometimes I would try to find my way back a different way than I came. And I was driving for 2 hours, going nowhere. You know what I mean? But I think just the act of, first of all, being outside of, the conditions that I was in at the moment, like the place where the situation happened or what have you. And then putting my mind to something else, finding my way around, without relying on technology to get me somewhere. It allowed me to clear my head. So I think it's important that people recognize that it's not selfish to take time for yourself. It's healthy, like you said. Because if you don't give yourself that space to breathe when it's necessary, you could hurt yourself. You can get sick. You can hurt the people around you.
Yeah.
Without meaning to.
Yeah, definitely.
Just because it builds up. You know what I mean?
And it's like you're creating a monster.
Sure.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I think one of the things I've actually been thinking about this entire week, I have a coworker, and she came up in a wheelchair. And I was like, "What are you doing? Like, stop playing around." She's like, "I just couldn't walk." And I was like, "That's weird." Like, okay. I thought she was like gassing me. I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, you're just tripping. So then she was like, she started saying, like, she was walking in the aisle and then her leg just started cramping. She just started crying.
This was while she was at work?
While she was at work. Has no clue what's going on. So I was like, so why are you still here?
Right.
If this happened and you were crying, why are you still at work in a wheelchair working? That made no sense to me.
Sure.
She's like, oh, I have things that I need to take care of. And I was like, great, it's cool. And I think just being that dedicated to your job, sure, if that's what you want to do, that's cool. But the only thing that I could tell her is, have you ever been on a plane? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, have you ever, watched before you take off, they do either show a video or they do a demonstration?
I see where you're going.
And she was like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, have you ever seen when the air masks fall from the ceiling? She was like, yeah. I was like, what do they say? Put it on? And I was like, yeah. But the point that I'm trying to make is they always tell you to put that on yourself first.
Right.
Before you put it on anybody else. Now, to me, as a father, that is crazy.
Sure.
Heck no. Like, I can't see myself. Whatever. I'm putting my life on the line first.
That's like counterintuitive.
Right. I'm like,
save yourself.
I'm not doing that. Like, what if the entire time I'm trying to save myself, I could have helped them. Right. But I understand what's happening. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of someone else.
That's good.
That's real good.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like,
yeah, if you ain't got no oxygen, you ain't putting masks on nobody.
At all, yo. And so it's just like, and she was sitting there and she's like, I'm going to the doctor now. And I was like, yeah, get out of here, yo. It's like, it's wild. It's wild. And so, yeah, definitely. It is healthy for you to take care of yourself and for you to, basically be true to yourself and give yourself what you need when you need it. but I think it also has to happen. It all kind of links back to balance, right? So you can't always give yourself everything that you need. Sometimes you have to give your partner what your partner needs, or give your kids what they need. So I think and I think this is just where a lot of times people kind of get frustrated, because everything that you were doing, earlier when you were talking about just assuming things, and you started going through this list, you were talking about a list of things, and I was getting exhausted just at the thought of how much thought process has to happen on so many different levels. And I'm like, that is so exhausting, which is one of the reasons why I hate communicating, because you have to cross every line. Oh, maybe I should do this, or maybe I shouldn't say this, and I'm tiptoeing over here,
And then your
it's just
tone,
and
and
I'm
it's
like,
everything.
oh my gosh! If you shut up, you never have to go through none of that.
That's
Yo.
technically true.
Yo, if you just shut up and don't talk to people, you won't have to go through that, bro.
But sometimes not
It's a lonely
saying
life.
anything.
Yo, yeah, you're getting it.
You know what I'm saying?
In a marriage, bro, forget it,
Oh
yo.
my gosh.
Forget it. Forget it. If I'm quiet, it's like I'm not allowed to be quiet. And it's like I've trained managers all day. I really just don't want to talk. I just want to sit in my closet. Like, seriously.
In your closet.
Bro, I bought like a stool.
I have like an image of you just coming home, bro, putting your bags down, going past the kitchen, everything, the TV, and just closing the closet door.
Honestly, I just go straight to my closet, yo. Like, that's
You're
my
like,
getaway
my
moment.
shoes have never let me down.
They never let me down, bro. It's to the point now where my kids, they know. They'll just
That's daddy's
they'll
space.
just open the door like, what you doing in here? They'll like sit down in there with
That's
me.
hilarious.
And we'll just kind of like chill. And I let them do it because, obviously they come first, Well, they come second. My wife comes first. But it's tough, man. It's tough dealing with all of these different things, and making sure that all of the areas of need is like checked off.
Sure.
In your
But
life.
you know what? Like, going back to like the communication, the honesty, like, I think it might lead to an argument, and you guys can tell me I'm completely wrong. But I think, like, I'm being you for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, if you're in a situation and you're like that, I think it's probably okay sometimes to be like, I don't want to talk.
I think so.
And to say that.
I've gone through this, right? So early in my life, I was that hothead kid that I'm gonna just tell you however I feel.
Right.
And I've explained this to Raquel. It's like, yo, that's how I feel. I'm gonna just say it. Now, 20 minutes from now, I'm probably gonna regret what I'm saying.
Of course.
So me just challenging myself, and I started realizing that obviously that was the worst way to go about it. So then I started finding myself like apologizing after something happened. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. One day she called me on that, John. She was like, you can't just talk reckless and then apologize about it and thinking that it's going to be all right. And I was like, whoa, you're right. So it basically threw me back to the drawing board. And I was like, well, that didn't work. So now I'm going to try something else. Okay, that didn't work. So now I'm going to try something else.
Right.
So what I've learned is every time you cook a dish, you don't use the same seasoning, bro. Right? Sometimes a dish might call for black pepper and salt, oregano or something like that. Sometimes it just calls for some turmeric, right? Sometimes it might just be whatever, some onions or whatever. So you can't necessarily, and this is what I'm kind of like learning in life right now. Or a lot of times a person will tell you something and say, oh, that's what I did. And a person would just take it and be like, that person did that, so that's going to work for me. No.
Yeah.
You can't generalize everything and apply it to every situation. So I'm saying that to say, There's times when there's something happening. Depending on what's happening, you'll then have to know how to address that appropriately. So there's times where, as calmly as possible, you say, the situation is going south. We're both not going to get anywhere with this. I think it's best that we think about it and regroup later.
Sure.
Or there's times where you might have to pony up and talk it out.
Yeah.
Or there's times where you just have to say, you know what, I'm out. Like, forget it.
We're not going to come to an agreement.
Just, you might have to walk away. So I think you definitely have to learn all of these different things and apply them when necessary. And however it fits within your relationship. Sometimes you have to fight for what's important for your family. And sometimes you might not be on the same level, but you have to fight for it. Mm-hmm. Like, this is where we're going as a family. This is what we need to do. And although that person might not agree, if God has placed that in your heart and told you, like, hey, that's where your family needs to start going, you probably need to fight for it. Right?
Right.
So I think it definitely depends on what's happening, how important that is, how well rooted both of you guys are, that you guys are on the same page. And the only way that you get on the same page is through communication, right? And understanding, and just basically working through it.
Right.
So I don't believe that there's a general formula that fits every situation. At some point, you're going to have to compromise.
Sure.
That selfishness, the level and the dynamic of it, it's going to have to evolve and change as you go and grow and move out through life.
And the thing is, it never gets easier. It's not something that you master and you're like, I got it.
Well, this is the thing is like, I guess sometimes when we talk, or when we just in general, when we talk about this or when we think about it, we often think about, if I tried something in the past and it's no longer working, I need to adjust it this way. We often only think of the fact that something like on our end has changed, right? We don't think that in a relationship of any kind, a connection with another human being, there's two dynamic individuals that are constantly growing and changing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's why you're not using the same seasoning anymore, like, because your taste has changed, sure, but so has the other person.
Right.
So it's not necessarily like always even a simple evolution either, or taking that template that's worked for somebody else is a good starting point, or what you've done in the past might be a good starting point. It might not be. You might have to throw the playbook out completely.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's two sides and two completely different people that are not the same that they were yesterday.
And or the two definitely doesn't always grow equally.
Sure. Yeah.
That to me is just like, it gets me a lot of times, because a lot of times it's like I found this information out, or I figured something out, and immediately I'm just like, yo, I figured this out. Yada, yada, yada. And it was maybe like a couple weeks ago, I'm just like, well, maybe where I am right now, she doesn't want to be there yet. And so I'm like trying to give her this information, and she's like rejecting it. She doesn't need that right now. So although, and I think when you're talking in a marriage, when the Bible said the two must come together as one, bro, it's for some it's easy, sure, right? But when you're talking different cultures, different, it's so much. Just difference not only in just cultures, but just you're two different human beings trying to come together as one. The analogy that I always think about is putting oil and water in like the same cup. They immediately separate themselves. And the only way that you can get them to come together is just through
Constant mixture.
Right. And it has to be constant, repetitive. Like, you got to beat it. You got to like get it together. And it takes a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's not easy. The form, it doesn't like, so when someone says, oh yeah, just make sure you take one day and you go out and spend some time with each other. Yeah, that one time y'all might be like trying to rip each other heads off. right? Like that it could look differently. So, it's a lot. It's so much. It's so much to kind of like.
You've just disproved every relationship and marriage seminar that's ever existed.
Good.
Just kidding.
You're on point with the analogies today too, by the way. Killing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you're right.
It's just a lot. It's a lot to kind of go through.
Sorry. Jeremy's sitting outside looking sad because he's not a part of the conversation.
He was about to come in but decided not to.
Yeah,
but
so.
There's cheese outside, so he should be all right for a little while longer.
Little rat. But it's definitely a challenge, man, and it's hard. It's really hard sometimes, especially for myself, man. Like I said, I balance is important to me. To the point where my wife says that I'm CDO. I'm not OCD. I'm CDO. It has to be like in order.
Oh, I've never heard that before.
I was like, what?
she messes with me like that, right? So it's like balance is important, and I definitely feel like it just in my life, like if I'm leading and directing and teaching and doing all of this stuff at work, by the time I get home, I really don't want to do it. I just don't. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard because I'm a leader in my household. Yeah. And there's people looking to me for direction. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm just out of it.
Yeah.
Because I've just been doing it all day long. And that's where, I just kind of have to like balance everything out just a little bit.
Yeah. You don't want to burn out too.
Yeah. So, balance is definitely important. But to bring it back all together, man, communication is really the root of everything. And, with just everything that I kind of have going on, like I'm like all over the place. And with that, if I keep my wife in the loop just to like let her know, like ahead of time, like, hey, just let you know, like, this is what's going on. This is going on over here. Got to do this over there. That's going on right there. I'll be over here. And I just keep her in the loop and just keep her just informed. It makes it a lot better. And she's a lot more understanding and supportive of what's going on. Because now I have shared my dreams with her. And so she's like, all right, okay, she then supports me in different ways. All right, go ahead. Fine. Cool. No problem. And it's like, I don't know if it's just the maturity of our marriage now, where it's just, all right, be safe. Mm-hmm. So, and that could happen too, right? So there's definitely growth that kind of happens and maturity that kind of happens with people. That definitely helps that situation. I definitely think for her, the important thing is she just needs her time. Sure, you have this going on, you have that going on, you have that going on. I need a day. And it just makes it, because now it doesn't look like everything else is more important than me. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not even in the picture. So now it's kind of like, all right, I pushed everything to the side. And today it's just us. We're just chilling. So definitely, that's what worked for us. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for you.
Right.
And it's just, friendships too. I've heard of friendships where they're just like, I'm always the one that has to call somebody.
Yeah. I hate when people say that.
then don't call. That's the biggest thing that I always
My
say.
sister told me a story recently of someone that she's known for a long time who I guess recently maybe they've reconnected or maybe they've kind of been, talking a little bit for a while, but lately actually I think I had the conversation with her like right before I came over to your mom's house one day when we were shooting, taking pictures. I don't want to say we were doing a shooting at your mom's house. But she was telling me about this person and like trying to be diplomatic. She said this person has a lot of things that are going on. And she was kind of venting to me that she she's always the person that's like giving, like offering emotional support, being a listening ear, all of those things. And then after this person, is done saying all the things she's going to say, she's like, "So how are you? How have you been?" And then when my sister starts to say like, "Oh, well, like pretty good, we're doing this, that." Actually, hey, can I call you back? I'll call you right back, I promise. And then she said she never does. And she was like, I'm tired of it.
Then stop.
Well, I told her I was like you can stop. You could you could just not be that person anymore. I said what I would do, and you can take with this information what you want. I would say the next time she calls, put all your cards on the table. Like, I love you. You're an important person in my life. We've been friends for a long time. But I feel that I'm only here for you.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
People, that's happened a lot. And I remember where I went through a phase like that where I felt like someone was using me. And the thing that kind of like woke me up from it is I feel like people play different roles in your life. Sometimes you just got to accept your role if you want to. It's really up to you. Sometimes people just need you to listen, bro. If that's what it is, then that's what it. If that's my role, is to just listen to this man, whatever he's going through. That's cool.
If that's what you want to do.
If that's what you want
Right.
to do, right? Now, if there's something else that you need from that, then obviously just say that. But for me, like I think the crazy thing is, why would that person always choose you to talk to you about the things and the struggles that they're going through? Like, it's for a reason.
Right.
They trust you.
It's a
whatever it
reason.
is.
There is a
Yeah.
reason. They're comfortable. Maybe the other people that they're having in their lives are really gonna give their opinion and be very opinionated
let
and
them
tell them
down
what to do
or
or
something.
whatever. Or they can't keep their mouth shut, can't keep the secret. There's so many different things. However, I know that when I call sis, she's just gonna listen. So I think what I would do if I was sis, I would listen. And then whenever she starts asking me the question, "Oh, so how are you?" Don't even worry about it, babe. It's all right. Everything is good. I wouldn't even open the door. Like, I wouldn't even entertain it.
Sure.
Because the role that I need to play in your life is just to listen. Listen to what you got going on.
I have a question. Is it selfish? Let's say that was our dynamic of our relationship. You called me to tell me things and to tell me about the things you were going through. And then I wanted to tell you the things that I'm going through, but I never did. Is it selfish of me to want that or to expect that?
No. I think people typically want to receive what they give.
Right.
I think it's just the way how we are as human beings. We typically give love the way how we want to receive love. So I don't think it's selfish. I just think it's a natural thing. If you're going to tell me how you feel, then I'm going to tell you how I feel.
Right.
But I think you just have to kind of break that expectancy, because there's things that I tell you as one of my best friends, and then there's things that I just don't tell Jeremy, because I know that for this particular thing, I don't really want an opinion. I just really want to.
Or he's just not the person you come to with that type of thing.
Right. Not necessarily that I'm like picking. I just know he's probably just going to listen. And it might be the other way around.
That's real.
Right?
That's
so
real.
I just know that dude's just going to listen. I don't necessarily need an opinion. I don't need your 2 senses. I just need an ear.
Yeah. I guess it's like what you're saying, it's the role. Understanding
your role.
Your role, somebody else's role in your life. And I mean, yes, I think that type of relationship on one side is selfish, right? Especially if you are using someone knowingly or even unknowingly.
But you can only be used if you allow yourself to be used.
Right. Nobody can make you
nobody can
make you feel a certain way like that.
At all. It's I'm saying you have total control of it.
Right. And I'm just thinking from like sort of like an outside perspective, like a third person view of the situation. It appears that one side is selfish versus the other. But I think inside the relationships, it just comes to it comes down to the understanding. But I do think that there's probably some times where if you feel personally, like if I was always coming to you with my personal drama, and even if you understood your role, there's probably a point in time where that dynamic has to change.
But or I would say that it's my responsibility to communicate to you that I don't want that type of relationship.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And then
there definitely has to be communication.
And in that moment, if you want to put it like this, it's okay for me to be selfish and say, I don't want that.
Right.
Because I want something else. So thank you, but no thank you.
I think what you're saying with the roles is almost an unspoken thing sometimes. Like you assume a position on yourself without having to say like, this is our dynamic.
Right.
Like I'm the ear that you want. I know you got a lot going on. Come to me with whatever. Sometimes, a lot of times,
it's too much
unspoken.
Right, but it's nothing is said.
Right, but it can become a point where it's like
it's too much.
I can't anymore.
But then I think, and that's where a lot of people just don't speak up because they've been doing it for so long. It's kind of like, well, I don't really want to say something.
Well, not to mention too, if someone's always coming to you with situations of people that let them down, and then you're like, I can't be that ear for you anymore.
That sucks.
In a way, you're like, I don't want to be more of those people.
But the question that I would ask that person is, well, think about why everyone is letting you down. What's the common denominator here?
Yeah.
Right? and sometimes you just have to be real with people. The point that I was going to make earlier with what you were saying, and Kenny kind of like, he made the point, there definitely has to be some form of communication. But if you're having drama in your life, okay, and I'm having drama in my life, what good is it if we both exchange the drama that we have? What's going to be the outcome? So you're telling me your drama. Now you tell me my drama. All right, I got this going on. Then what are we going to get to? Yes, we're both miserable. Great.
I think you're right. Yes, but I will say there is another side to that. Some people, their relationships are like that. It's like just airing of grievances, and they're like they like to say like
bro, misery likes company.
I used to have
serious.
I used to have a joke with it was like not real, but we used to, like how people are like one-uppers. Like they're always like, if you got something good going on, they're like, oh yeah, well, look at this. Me and my friends used to joke around and be like one-downers. And it's like, oh man, like I got in a car accident the other day. It's like, oh, you got in a car accident? My grandma died. Like, you know what I mean? So some people just, like the misery like loves company thing, they just like to share their
Pain.
all of the drama, for the sake of the drama. But I will say that there is a dynamic of just airing your grievances to one another and venting things that just and not even if I'm just saying something to you guys about that I'm going through, like you mentioned, like you want him to listen. He's the person that you would come to when you want someone to listen, not necessarily an opinion. The dynamic there is if that happens both ways and you are a listener for him and you're a listener for him, in those situations, the benefit is not that you guys both shared your drama, but rather that you both had the opportunity to just say exactly how you feel out loud because it was a safe enough space in your relationship to just be honest and then get that past you. Because sometimes you internalize things so much, like we were talking about earlier, that it leads and you create that monster of, not saying the things that you need to say often enough, not opening up your emotions often enough. So it ends up leading you down a darker path. So I think some people do like, that just saying negative things to one another
Right.
about their lives. But I think for some people it is necessary to have that person where you can both air your drama.
I think to me, I don't believe you're gonna get anywhere just airing just your drama, and then I'm gonna tell you my drama, and then to me, it's just I don't think you're gonna get anywhere.
Right.
That's just
Yeah, I think it's a
for me.
personality thing. You know what I mean?
Definitely, definitely, it's definitely like a personality thing. I think what would help that situation is if I've gone through something similar to that, and you're telling me what you're going through, and I would say, hey,
This is what helped me.
when I went through that
Yeah.
situation, here's what I did and here's how I went about it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that can help you or maybe not, or
Take with
whatever
it.
the case is.
Take from it what you may.
So, and I think it's not saying, oh, well, and then one time, Johnny did this, it's like,
Just being non-productive.
it's just non-productive.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just the negativity and the negative. It's kind of like if you're negative and I'm negative, like there's nowhere you're going to get a positive out of that. It's just
Right.
like,
Yeah, I'm not necessarily like getting at like trying to think about the right way to explain it. Not just the sharing of the negative, but I think just opening up about your internal struggles.
I think opening up is overrated. Communication and opening up is just overrated, bro.
To some people.
I guess.
Some people
I
need
guess.
it. It's
Yeah,
just-
I guess. For me, I don't, man. It's just like,
You don't ever feel like you have to say something.
no,
It's so interesting.
no, I don't.
I do.
Do you?
I'm 50-50. Some things I want to talk about and I want to get maybe some feedback on. Some things I just want to vent. And after I vent, I'm fine and I can move on.
Right.
And then some things I never really want to speak about. And not because of any insecurity or me trying to hide anything, but it's just like I've thought about it. I've analyzed the situation. I've assessed it. I know how I'm going to deal with it moving forward. I know how I'm going to decide to feel about it moving forward. I'm good. So I'm kind of all over the place in that sense. So I feel how you feel for some things, and I feel how you feel for other things. So
I'm not 100% there. Like, I am more of a talker than both of you, but there are a lot of things, if this is believable to the people that know me, there are a lot of things that I don't say intentionally. I just say a lot about the things I do say. But I'm also a very, I'm a very forward person to a degree, but a different way than you are, right? And I think that I attribute that to my ability to have made close friends in my life. That I don't, for the most part, I don't have a problem being personally honest about things. weaknesses, struggles, whatever the case may be. I think that because I don't have a ton of apprehension, now it has to be the right person, you know what I mean? But since I don't have a ton of apprehension with telling people how I feel or letting people in, it's enabled me to like find the people who really actually care to be involved. You know what I mean? Because people that don't, they just don't want to be a part of it. You also find different dynamics too. Like you and I have conversations from time to time, not as frequently as you have with them probably. But you and I are very different people, but there are some times where you and I meet in the middle.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it also is like an individual situation.
Yeah,
for
definitely
every person.
understanding your audience. I think the just whole the emotional deal and the communication deal, for me, I can definitely say it's probably something that's kind of cultural, and something within my upbringing.
Yeah.
You know, there's something that I read on Instagram the other day on this Jamaican page that I follow, and it's something that used to be like in my house, and it's like this little cloth thing. I don't even know what they call it, and it said like what you see here, what you hear here, what you do here stays here. Like, and so it's kind of like, yo, whatever happens here, it's just here. Like, and so
Don't take that with you.
yeah, just, it doesn't. So basically, whatever happens in your household stays in your household. What you see in your house, it stays here. What you hear in your house, it stays here.
It's like Vegas.
Yeah. What
Right,
happens in
yeah.
Vegas stays in Vegas.
So it's like, and I think because of that, it's just, you don't spread your business. You don't, tell people how you're feeling, because in the Jamaican culture, if you're like, telling people the way how you feel, it just shows your weaknesses. And it just shows that you're vulnerable in all these different areas. So I think just because of my culture, the way how my upbringing was, I think a lot of it is just overrated. Sure. Now, what I've had to learn is, when do you apply these things? When they said it's a time and a place for everything, it's just understanding the placement of all of these different things and just understanding the balance of it all. So that's why I think, a lot of times, a lot of these things are just overrated.
I'm just thinking as you're talking. When we were on the phone a few weeks ago planning for that most recent photo shoot, and I was like, "This is awkward for me, like saying this kind of stuff." You're like, "Why? Just say it." And I'm like, "It just is. Can you please understand that?" You're like, "I don't get it."
I can hear him saying that.
Yeah, I don't get it, and I think for me, it's because, and just to that particular situation, business is business.
Sure. But you're also that way with personal stuff too.
Yeah. I'm really cut and dry. Yeah. Like, just,
which I thought I was until I became friends with you.
Oh no, Phil has you beat, bro. Like, I literally will think a situation that's so complicated. I'm like, man, I'm thinking this and this, and Phil will just be like, man, you just need to, and I'm like, dang, you right. Just get over it.
Like if I was 100, Phil's like 100,000.
Oh my gosh, dang, put them all up there.
In a good way, I'm saying.
I guess I don't know.
No, but I like that about you. I think we all like that about you. You know what I mean? Because you cut through the crap in a different way than most of us are used to, and it's probably because of your cultural upbringing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
So I'm gonna attempt to do what Jeremy does and summarize the entire conversation.
Good luck.
So feel free to jump in. So the question was, when is it okay to be selfish? I think in our conversation, we've kind of come to the conclusion that, first of all, being selfish is not a negative thing. It's not a dirty word. In fact, it's necessary in order for you to have balance in different areas in your life, especially relationships.
Communication.
and understanding
is like the key. I mean, it's probably the most important thing in any relationship, right? In any way is the communication.
When
right?
when they
And
throw that
honesty.
out there, when they say communication is key, it's
Absolutely.
that portion is definitely the truth.
Yeah.
Communication, understanding, and respect plays
Yeah. Respect.
very huge rules
Very, very big.
on you appropriately being selfish.
If you need to have all three of those, right? One can't work with, or it can't work with just a combination of a couple of them, because you have the communication, you're opening the line for discussion. Then the next step is understanding, internalizing the communication and applying that. And then you still can do all of that, but not respect the information and the
Right.
person that's brought you the information. And then it's still going to fall apart. So you have to communicate, you have to understand, and you have to respect one another.
and you have to realize and be open to the fact that it's not something that you're going to figure out in a day,
Right.
in a year.
It's a process.
It's a process that's always going to adapt and shift and change. And you have to be able to kind of move with that as you learn, as you grow, as you get in different relationships,
That's
as you
heavy.
deal with different people.
That's heavy.
And yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck, suckers.
I think definitely in closing is never walk away from a situation, and this is kind of like what I do with my life now. Never walk away from a situation without taking and learning something from it, good, bad, or indifferent. And you could apply that with your relationship. If it's your schooling, if you failed a class, what caused you to fail that class? How could you not do that things to be better in your next class? It's like there's in everything that we do, there's always opportunity for growth.
right.
Right. So if I never went back to the drawing board and said, okay, speaking my mind initially, however I feel, isn't the right way. Okay, let me go back and start over. I would have never known that option one is not applicable in every situation.
Right.
So now I've developed option two. Option two failed. Okay, now I've developed option three. So if I never learned from the first one, I would have never made it to two if I never learned from two. You understand? So definitely use your experiences and the things that you've gone through and create a catalog of how do you build and grow. Growth is important.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I think that
With
comes
this
down
all.
to something that we bring up a lot, which is
Yeah.
self-awareness.
Yeah.
Being aware of who you are and the things you do, and then being open to the change. So
Cool.
Night, night.
Deuce, deuce.
That's my sign off. I go night, night.
thanks for watching and listening.
And everybody goes to sleep.
And thank you.
Miserable.